Hi guys, Joey Lee here. This week I've been focusing on like really creepy case studies and stories on the internet, like of paranormal happenings and just really creepy, disturbing stories that I thought I would share with you with my own like opinions, because some of them are pretty crazy. The creepiest one I have actually done this week would probably be the lady in white. That really terrified me, like the whole idea of being in a white dress on the side of the road with like long black tangly hair and like just putting their thumb out just casually for a lift. Really, really creepy. So there is one I have chosen today which is just as creepy but in a whole nother way. This isn't a paranormal as such story. This is true, this is real. This does not involve ghosts or demons. It is just people. It does hint a little bit to possession at the end, but just really lightly. Like, I just feel like this was just a man-made cause. It's called the Russian sleep experiment. Like, it probably sounds like a little bit creepy, but not too creepy, but just listen. I'm going to read this straight off the internet because it is quite a long story, and I'm probably just going to skim through most of it just to keep this video too short. I don't want to just sit here and like blab on for ages. Yeah, so I will leave the link to the full story below if you would like to read the full story. Okay, so this is just lightly what it's about here, and then I'll read the whole story. Toward the end of the 1940s, Soviet researchers sealed 5 prisoners in an airtight chamber and dosed them with an experimental stimulant gas to test the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation. Their behavior was observed via two-way mirrors and their conversations monitored electronically. They were promised their freedom if they could go without sleep for 30 days. Right, so I'm pretty sure it's impossible to go without sleep for 30 days, but that is what they had been promised. They obviously wanted to see if they could really, really do it, giving them that incentive. And so this is what happens. The first few days passed uneventfully, but by the 5th day, however, the subjects began showing signs of severe stress, like they started biting their fingernails down to the wick, like they were bleeding. They'd started like pulling their hair. They started like rocking back and forth. Like they were starting to show signs of severe stress. They'd stopped talking to each other. Like they wouldn't talk with the other inmates. They would go into quiet little corners and whisper to the researchers about other people to gain like to be the favourite, to get out early, to just be the first one to get out. As the story changes, by the 9th day, the screaming began. First one subject, then another, was observed running around the chamber screaming for hours on end. Equally disconnecting was the behaviour of the quieter subjects, who began ripping apart the books they had been given to read, smearing the pages with feces and plastering them over the mirrored windows so their actions could no longer be observed. Then, just as suddenly, the screaming stopped. So as soon as they'd covered up the windows so that their actions couldn't be seen, the screaming stopped. They ceased communicating altogether. 3 days passed without a sound coming from inside the chamber. So the researchers tried to address them via the intercom, and they said, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor. If you do not, you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you immediate freedom." A voice from inside answered, "We no longer want to be freed." Isn't that just a little bit creepy? Just a little bit creepy? Listen. 2 more days passed without any contact of any kind. They decided to terminate the experiment at midnight on the 15th day. The stimulant gas was flushed from the chamber and replaced with fresh air in preparation for the subject's release. Far from being pleased at the prospect of leaving, the subjects began screaming as in fear for their lives. Like, they were terrified to leave this chamber now. They were terrified for some really unknown reason. The researchers unsealed the door to the chamber and sent armed soldiers inside to retrieve them. Nothing could have prepared them for the carnage they witnessed upon entering. One subject was found dead, lying face down in 6 inches of bloody water. Chunks of his flesh had been torn off and stuffed into the floor drain. All of the subjects had been severely mutilated. In fact, even worse, the wounds appeared to be self-inflicted. They had ripped their own abdomens and disemboweled themselves with their bare hands. Some had even eaten their own flesh. The 4 who were still alive seemed terrified of falling asleep and refused to leave the chamber. They began begging the researchers to turn the gas back on. So this gas was obviously a gas that would stop you from sleeping. And they were obviously scared to go back to sleep. When the soldiers attempted to remove the inmates by force, they fought back so furiously they couldn't believe their eyes. One suffered a ruptured spleen and lost so much blood there was nothing left for his heart to pump, yet he continued flailing and fighting for a full 3 minutes until his lifeless body collapsed. The remaining subjects were restrained and transported to a medical facility for treatment. The first to be operated on fought so furiously against being put to sleep for operation that he tore muscles and broke bones during the struggle. So he would have been like a wild, vicious, ferocious animal. Like, to break your own bones and tear your own muscles in struggle is incredible. The rest underwent surgery without sedation, without feeling any pain. However, they laughed hysterically on the operating table, so hysterically that doctors, fearing for their own sanity, had to paralyze them to immobilize them for safe surgery. After surgery, the survivors were asked why they had mutilated themselves and why they had desperately wanted to go back on the stimulant gas. Each in turn gave the same enigmatic answer: I must remain awake. The researchers considered terminating them to obliterate every trace of the failed experiment, but were overruled by their commanding officer, who ordered it to be resumed immediately. With 3 of the researchers joining the inmates in the sealed chamber, horrified, the chief researcher pulled out a pistol and shot the commanding officer point blank. He then turned and shot one of the 2 surviving subjects. Aiming his gun at the last one left alive, he asked, "What are you? I must know." "Have you forgotten so easily?" the subject said, grinning. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." The researcher fired a bullet into his heart. The EEG monitor flatlined as the subject murmured last 3 words: "So nearly free." So as the EEG machine was flatlining while he was dead, and it was flatlining. He said, "So nearly free." What has happened? Like, I am so confused. I don't understand how that could happen to people. Like, as I said earlier, it suggests a sort of like a possessed kind of vibe. But then again, like, being sleep deprived for so long, is it possible that people could do that to themselves? But the way they had spoken, like, where we cannot tread, almost seems like it is something inside of them, like some sort of demon who cannot sleep, who cannot physically rest, like who is not allowed to rest, like is banished from that. But listen to the analysis. It is given that a number of human beings require a certain amount of sleep on a regular basis in order for our minds and bodies to function properly. Anyone who has experienced a night or 2 or 3 of insomnia knows how critical even a few hours of refreshing sleep can be. And then they've tried to cover their tracks by saying no such experiment took place. They went on to say that the 15 days straight had ended in a cannibalistic bloodbath. And then they try and cover it up by saying makes for a graphic fictional horror story. It is not borne out by scientific evidence. There is no so-called Russian sleep experiment, and it never took place. Yet they have names and dates that I will not name and I will not date, because it's just creepy, and I don't really want to say those names. I feel like it might be wrong, but I will put the link below, and you can tell me in the comments what you think about that. Yeah, so that really chills me, really freaks me out, just because of the way they said what they said. Like, it was full on creepy, and it was a big story too. Like, it sounds so believable. It should have been a movie. It played in my head like a movie. It was absolutely chilling. Like, ugh, it was so scary, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe for more. There's a whole week's worth of these in the playlists. Check out my channel. Tell your friends, because I don't want to just have like 7 subscribers my whole entire life. So like and subscribe. Joey Lee. Thank you. Bye.